retweets are always appreciated. Unless you have to give the stream a second or two before we actually start talking, because it doesn't. Yay, Thursday! All right. Good afternoon. Evening. Good evening. Good evening. My friends, my coders, my companions, the closest people to me nowadays. It is Thursday. It is 9 p.m. Pacific Coast time, and it is time to get ugly. We are on PHP Ugly 183? 183. PHP Ugly 183. I'm your host, Eric Van Johnson. With me is my close personal friend, Thomas Rideout. And another person who touches me inappropriately on the face, John Congdon. And I enjoyed all 16 of them. My fellow coders. The world's on lockdown. Oh, man. It's crazy. Crazy times we live in. That was your last hurrah? Mm-hmm. It's weird because maybe because everybody's working from home now, but my morning walks with the dog, which my dog we've spoke about in the past, is very neurotic, has been diagnosed with compulsion disorder, and we can't hear you. Oh no. Can't hear you.
That matters.
Okay, now they can hear you. Thank you very much, Diane, and whoever else mentioned that in chat.
Diana.
I appreciate that. Diana, let me know if you're hearing John now. John, say something.
What do you want me to say?
Honestly,
right.
The story he just shared was not that interesting, so you didn't miss anything.
Of course, but... yeah, not at all.
But
tensions are high in the PHP Ugly office.
Thomas, jump over the stream. Well, see if we can hear. You can hear everybody.
While he's doing that, I'm going to tell you. Or you want to finish your story first? Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I want to make sure Thomas can hear you, anyways.
Okay. Yeah. Since nobody cares about what I'm saying, I want you to know, because of California being on lockdown and the stress levels being so high, I've got a low ball it was full of scotch. That's empty. I've got a wine glass full of wine that I'm starting to work on now. And I've got a water cup full of water to wash all of this other stuff down. So I'm ready for the show.
California lockdown, just encouraging that alcoholism. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, I don't know if it's because everybody's working from home or what's going on, but with my morning walks with my dog, which as I've talked about in the past, my dog's very neurotic. He's been diagnosed with compulsion disorders. So it's like me walking him in the morning is almost a necessity. But all of a sudden, like, there's like a lot of people at the dog park now. It's like the most crowded place I go. It used to be our like, quiet time where it's just him and I, and maybe one or two people would be at the dog park, or we might see one or two people when we're walking. But now it's like packed. Like, I'm like, who are all these people and these dogs? Get out of here! Too many people.
People need places to go. Actually, did you hear they shut down Lake Miramar, which is a huge lake, and it's a 5-mile path around that I take the boys to go bike riding. And Jackie, my wife, just got a bike. I literally just got a bike shipped to me yesterday. I put it together last night and today. So we're ready to go on a family bike ride this weekend, and they shut down Lake Miramar. So it's like all the good spots to go riding are being shut down because everyone is going there.
Yeah, it's weird. Thomas, is the stream okay now?
Streams are all good.
Good, man. Good. How about you, Thomas? How are you holding up?
I'm doing okay. You guys are on like total official lockdown now. You guys are what, shelter in place, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if there's like, I don't know. I know like in Italy right now, you're getting arrested if they catch you out and about. Like they're writing tickets and arresting people. We're not there yet.
It's generally the same. You guys are close. California's got the strictest rules right now. Here in Colorado, there's just no bars, no restaurants, and everyone is doing restricted hours. And honestly, I haven't noticed. I don't like leave the house a whole lot. Also, it snowed today, which generally when it snows, no one leaves their house anyways. But yeah, it's a little bit nuts. I have a lot of friends who are in the service industry, and they're told just stay at home. Sorry, no paychecks this month.
Interesting enough, a lot of the restaurants are staying open. There's just no in-house eating, so everybody's to go. Even some of the restaurants that wouldn't historically do like curbside service are now doing curbside. Like they don't even want you to walk in. They're just like, hey, call us when you get here. Order ahead, call us, we'll bring it out to you. So,
you really want to be eating food from people that are cooking your food?
So here's the question, though, right? With groceries being as hard as they are to get right now, it's like, do you take advantage of services like DoorDash that and order your food, on demand for as long as you can until you can't anymore?
I'm so freaked out by it. Like I've had some grocery deliveries over the past week, and I am so freaked out by it that I leave them out in my garage. I have a fridge out in my garage. I throw it all in the fridge or leave the dry stuff out, go inside, wash as best as I can right then, and then I leave it out there for 24 hours before going and getting it and bringing it in.
For just to like decontaminate it.
Yeah.
You don't have a ultraviolet light?
I left mine at the office, and I can't get to the office to grab it.
Yeah, that's something we were talking about earlier about how good it feels to be paying for an office that nobody can use right now. That just feels so awesome.
Well, you might not have to pay for it. Do you know what there's going to be as far as relief goes?
I don't.
Yeah.
No.
I know everyone's waiting for their $1,000 check.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want the whole show to be about this, but I do want to say I feel super fortunate to be in the industry that we're in, because as of right now, we are not being affected very much. Right. Actually, we're not being affected at all. We get to work from home. Our clients are still busy. Even if they're not, they're willing to make the investment to get stuff done now, so that when things kind of return to a normal, they're ahead of the curve.
Right.
And we picked up a new client within the last week, so it's not all bad.
You did, yeah.
It's Charles Victor 19. Real nice guy. Shook hands with everybody.
You're so mean. You're so mean. Oh, so I came across a tweet today. I thought you guys would be happy. It looks like, and maybe you guys already know this, but I guess Facebook has rolled out their official new layout. Have you guys got it yet?
Oh my!
Not.
So the tweet.
I've not gotten it or not seen it.
Yeah, let me see. I think I can do. I think I can screen. Yeah, I can share screens now. Yeah. So yeah, the tweet went out.
To new Facebook. Look at that.
There you go, baby.
I don't have that.
Welcome to a fresh, simpler Facebook. Turn on dark mode to give your eyes a break. Catch up quickly with faster loading times. All right, there we go. Dark mode enabled.
Hey, I don't have that.
Yeah, it's in the little drop arrow. You don't have switch to new Facebook.
No.
Yeah. You should. Everybody else in the world has it, apparently.
I don't.
Now they are targeting you.
Maybe they heard what I said.
I don't know that I'm liking the layout. I like the dark mode, but not necessarily the layout. Anyway.
Yeah, so I thought I know we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. I don't know how I don't know how I stumbled upon it before you guys, but yep, that's out there now. So it's a real
gotta
thing.
Love random beta tests.
That's true. Yeah. So
well, I'm not happy about.
Speaking of beta, I'll bring it back to PHP focus. Speaking of beta, I ran into a fun beta issue today. Actually, over the past few days, it's been interesting. One of our clients actively has a beta server where new features that they're not 100% sure about will go there. That's where their QA team goes to test. And then they'll put members of the site that are okay testing beta features, they'll move them over to test. But there's a fun caveat to the way this works is one of their, I guess, microservices, they do phone calls. The phone servers connect back to production, not to beta. So we share the sessions between beta and their production servers, right? So they're testing getting rid of Redis cluster as a session manager and just going to Redis master slave replication. But they only did it in beta, not in production, so that the sessions were no longer shared because the person that did it didn't know about this restriction.
I can't possibly see how that would go wrong.
Okay, so then it gets better. I know how to fix it. I fix it live on the beta server. There's no real users using beta at this point. No big deal. In another environment, the same setup is there, and that person did the same thing over there. So we're testing a new feature for this other client or other environment, but now we're just randomly being logged out. Like, what the hell's going on? And we talked about it today on PHP Podcast, Eric, where sometimes stepping away from the code, stepping away helps because it's not always in the code. And it turned out this was in AWS, where for some reason it wasn't just the beta server responding to web traffic. The load balancer was also set up for their cron server in that environment only. So while they fixed the beta server for the sessions, there was another machine responding that was broken. It's just crazy.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So if you don't listen to PHP Podcast, go listen to that to get the backstory.
Yeah.
Like that cross promotion?
Little cross promoting, yeah. We cross promoted PHP Ugly on PHP Podcasts today, so
really, that's a dangerous move.
Yeah. I forget what we were talking about. But yeah, we did. A matter of fact, I think we brought up ugly a couple times on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was funny. I was sharing with Thomas last week. We switched back over to this Ecamm software because OBS keeps crashing, and but wish you guys would be live earlier. See, Rams. I don't tell you, man. Where are you at? Where do you live? Where you need us to be earlier? Because this is perfect timing for a coder. Anyways, we switched back over to Ecamm because OBS kept crashing, and I was sharing with Thomas that it now has built-in sound effects. Well, of course, Thomas is over Skype, so Thomas isn't hearing the sound effects. And then I'm editing the podcast, and I realize, yeah, the podcast doesn't hear the sound. The audio podcast doesn't hear the sound effects either. Like, damn it! So that was fun.
So it worked as well as everything else on the show does.
Yeah, pretty much. It pretty much went as smoothly as always. But it's fun because I'm. John mentioned we brought in a new client, and I'm actually doing some coding again. And man, I tell you, I know I always get on this soapbox, but man, I love coding. Like, I just love coding. Blocking everybody out and just getting into code and making things work. God, that's my favorite thing. I know why I do this for a living now.
Because of the lockdown, I've actually been getting a little bit more done. Obviously, having a couple more hours in the middle of the day, and we started a new sprint on the project I'm on. So, getting back into unit testing and TDD, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is why I do this stuff. And I finally opened a PR today that I got good feedback on, but it wasn't as bad as previous feedback has been. Sometimes it's like just so there's so many comments like, you should do this, you should do that, you can do that. Where the feedback on today is because my initial pass was a refactor, and it was a big copy paste of old controller, new controller, paste a bunch of crap in there, and it worked, and it was doing what I wanted it to do. But before opening the PR, I finally took the time to refactor it and try and do it more correctly than I would have in the past. And the feedback came through showing that I did take some time to figure things out, I hope. At least that's what I'm gonna tell myself.
You shared something earlier today that surprised me. You're diving a little deeper into domain-driven design.
Ooh.
I'm diving deeper in starting to research it because, one, it plays a big role in event sourcing, and it plays a role in CQRS, and just trying to understand that just a little bit more, because aggregate roots still drive me crazy. I keep wanting to attach everything to the user model. Like, everything stems from the user. The user does this, the user does that. And through some of the research I'm doing, and I'm doing, I think, Lynda courses or Coursera, where you need to really be looking at bounded contexts and thinking of, when you're looking at, say, e-commerce, you have the shipping context and the checkout context, or the cart context, and they both have like a book, but they mean different things to different contexts. Like, on the shipping side, they don't care about price, and on the checkout side, or the cart side, they don't care about how many are the size of it for a container or something like that. So they both have a book, but it's not necessarily the same record of the same database. And I find that fascinating.
I imagine that you're reading a lot of Martin Fowler's stuff for this.
I had in the past when I was doing event sourcing. I haven't done. It's like I want to know more about domain-driven design, but I haven't really gotten deep into it quite yet. I want to. but I'm terrible at following through with wants.
I have been reading everything I can get my hands on from him lately because I am looking at my skill set and reevaluating all of my capabilities, and part of that is reading a lot of things I already know just to say, oh, okay, I am okay with that. I do understand that. Busted out my Code Complete book, my Gang of Four design patterns book. Just been digging through everything I have, make sure I know what I'm talking about really, and just everything points back to Martin Fowler for some reason. He's got so much out there.
Yep. My newest thing, I just got the book.
Functional programming.
Programming and PHP. Functional programming.
I literally just got the book, so I'm just starting it. But again, it's something I'm lacking. I don't understand it enough. I want to know more.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I don't have time to know more.
When you get your head around it, explain it to me, because I've had it explained to me a little bit, and I guess I'm still lacking the benefits of it. So maybe I'm clearly not understanding what the pros of functional programming are, but to me it just sounds like how I used to program before I understood object-oriented programming.
Nah, that's procedural, not functional.
That's procedural. Yeah, yeah, that's true. There was a time where there was actually a big time in my coding career where I didn't understand the purpose of a class, so everything I did was a function. So I guess I was still object-oriented programming, but everything was functions, and I wasn't putting things in classes because it didn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, I don't understand why I need this extra layer of a class. I'll just create all these little individual functions, and I'll just use all these functions.
I still don't get it, but I accept it, like the Amish. Like, yeah, I know. No electricity or anything like that. I get it.
Hey, don't make fun of the Amish. We don't want to lose those listeners.
Yeah, you don't know. We might have a few Amish listeners out there. You know. Yeah.
Well, the thing I've been working a lot on is documentation, and not like code documentation, but like pre-code documentation.
Pre-code.
Terrible at that.
Is that like, you mean like scoping or?
Yeah, functional specs, software specs, that kind of before the code communication with clients. And I just like don't think about it a whole lot because it's not in my day-to-day work. But you guys jumped from like day-to-day developers into having to create these kinds of specs for people when you started DiegoDev.
Yeah. Let's say we did that.
We definitely should be better at it for sure.
Well, where did you start with it? I mean, did you get a book on functional specs? And
no, we're terrible at specking. We're terrible at documentation.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be straight up. We are. Yeah. That was one of the big reasons I'm looking forward to tech is they have specific courses or presentations on these things, and now that may not happen. So I'm like super bummed about it.
Shh! Don't say that. Don't relax. You heard Tennessee? They dance to their own tune out there, man. So we're okay.
I've seen some conferences are moving online.
Yeah,
they already do online, but they're not going to be able to charge what they're charging to do it.
Yeah.
And we've already. I mean, I'm torn with the online thing. Like I said, I enjoy Laricon online, but if all the conferences became online and I didn't have the benefit of the whole meet and greet and socializing piece, I definitely. I mean, a lot of conferences would fall off my radar. Like they wouldn't be as important anymore. But Yeah, but to your point, I mean, I'm always a little torn on the whole scoping thing. So we have a couple challenges with scoping, right? First thing is to really scope the project, you have to have a contract in place, okay? Because that takes a lot of time. You're not going to scope
Right.
a project to pitch a contract, right? But the problem is once the
That's not that, but that's not true. That's what happens in when with companies that are going after, especially RFPs. They are taking the time. They're spending that time up front to fully spec out an application and estimate it the best they can.
right, I don't. Do you feel like we're at that level? I mean, where people would respond to the surveys needed to do an RFP?
No, not necessarily for an RFP, but there's still like the client we just took on. We took some time to do basic estimates in order to show that we were confident we can get this done in the time they want done.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a project that has a start and end goal, they want some sort of estimate before signing a
Right,
contract.
but we still didn't really spec it out. I mean,
Well, I guess there's several. So there's several layers of specification. I mean, there's that functional specification, which is the first communication with the client on what the function of the system should be, and then you have your technical specification, which breaks it down into technical components, and then you have your architecture specification. So, I mean, that's in some companies that's literally three different people's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of those specs, and I guess it's just I'm trying to wrap my head around this sort of larger scale of how these things interoperate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, and very much to John's point, it's something we got to get better at. But I always find it a challenging role because you don't want to invest too much time in specking out this project until you have a contract. But once you get that contract in place, to John's point, the clock's ticking at that point. Like now the client doesn't want to pay for the time to spec it out. It's they're paying you, and I always thought that the retainer approach we took would alleviate that. Like my my goal was that they would stop looking at it as a time based contract and just say, okay, I'm paying this much for my IT staff. How long can I pay my IT staff? It would no longer be like there's 2 months to do this. It's like I'll have an IT staff. Now, what are the proper steps? And I also, we've tried so many approaches too. We've tried defining clear milestones, and everybody agrees to the milestones. Then 2 weeks later, the milestones are turned on their head, and everything is flipped around. And
Right.
it's hard for a client to spec out a project when the client doesn't really understand what they need to spec out, or the impact of just changing one aspect of an architecture. Of, oh, hey, instead of having the users log in, we're going to do this workflow. It's like, okay, well, that sounds simple, but that requires a ton of work in the back end. And it's tough. I mean, especially where we're at. That's why I really wish we could get into a role where we're out of the client, uh, uh, client area where we're doing client work, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just so challenging. It's so challenging to embrace all these visions, to have it. I end of day, I feel like John and I are about as honest of people as you're going to get in this industry, and to have clients feel like they're not being treated honestly is hurtful to me. And it's just like I don't know how to make this easier for you. We've tried everything we can do, and it's still a struggle for you. So One day we'll get out of the client contracting consulting gig and have our own thing. But
That's the goal. But I'm super excited to hear whatever you learn about documentation.
Yeah, I
For
mean that's
sure.
I can tell you that's going to dominate a lot of my time for the next year or so, at least.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the career path that I'm heading down is definitely less coding, but more application of coding knowledge. Um, Absolutely no management. I'm not doing management, or at least personnel type management. But I want a higher level understanding and involvement in large applications, and this kind of architecture takes that kind of work.
So do you not want to be a manager, or is it just not a role you're applying for?
I am not a manager, like fundamentally, just like not cut out for it.
Mm-hmm.
I dislike the experience of dealing with the types of problems that managers have to deal with.
Yeah. So as we've talked about, we've recently switched everyone to employees, and the HR system that we use to do our payroll and other things, they offer these monthly surveys that our employees take, which has been super helpful and insightful because
hurtful.
it's all
Oh yeah,
anonymous. People
helpful
can
and insightful. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and hurtful.
yeah, yeah. I chose to change that word on purpose, but anyway, it shows that as hard as we try, like we really want this family feeling, but at the same time, we're running a business and people want to know where they're at. And I know I am really bad at managing people. Eric is way, 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 way better at it, but we're still lacking. Eric is
Not at all.
when it comes to reviews and talking to people. Not that we do reviews often. That's one of the problems. We don't do them often enough. But when it comes to talking to people, as far as employees goes, Eric is the man. When it comes to clients, that's a whole nother story.
I would not have seen that.
I think I think what he's trying to say is, I've been in the industry
Eric's
long
better
enough.
than me.
I know the right things to say, but I'm pretty sure if you do a survey of all the DiegoDev employees, if there's a problem, they'd rather go to John than Eric. I can almost guarantee you that.
No, I don't think that's true. I think they're fine. I think they're fine talking to both of us.
This is a sort of a perverse version of patting each other on the back.
Yeah.
You have to be in one of the meetings to realize, when the initial talking to clients and preparing for doing business with them, talking to contractors or employees as far as doing performance reviews. Eric knows what he's doing. Again, like he said, he's been around that type of thing longer than I have. I've always been a sole developer. I'm the person, and none of my bosses of the past have really done reviews, so I'm not up to speed on that. So it is fun to watch him when he's doing that role, but at the same time, we don't do it enough as a business.
He has experience ripping Band-Aids off.
I don't know. I think I would enjoy getting a. I mean, I've seen you give reviews of people's performance. I think I would enjoy getting a review from you. I think you do good.
Did I just give you a review? Yes. Did I give you a review yesterday?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. What's more interesting, and this is like the weird thing about it, is like the maturing and the candor conversations John and I have, because John completely off the record. We never do this in front of anybody else. It's typically him and I. But John won't hesitate to call me and say, "Hey, I had a problem with the way you handled that." And then a lot of times I don't hesitate to say, "Well, I don't fucking care." And then it becomes this.
No, I've heard
It's funny because it's true. It's true.
Yeah, it's just like it's such a man, it's such a learning experience. I mean, it really is. It's always so good to hear how John heard the conversation and his feedback, and it's just something that I don't know. Maybe they do teach this in management training courses or something. I don't know. We've never gone through that. So to have this piece of it, and again, this is not a piece I'm particularly interested in. I just want to code. Like, I just want to get contracts in place so we can code and make a living and be happy. I don't want to do this part. I don't want to talk to the clients. I don't want to have weekly meetings, but we have to. And it's a maturing piece that it's like, okay, I need to figure out a better way of handling that in the future, because I'm definitely more the risk taker. I mean, like, between John and I will tell John, I'll tell him, I'm like, let's leave this, let's get rid of this contract. And John will be like, well, no, we can't get rid of the contract. No, we'll be fine. We'll figure it out. No, we won't. There's nothing to figure out. We're not getting rid of the contract. I wish we could share like those interactions, but there's just no way. I mean, and then there's no way of knowing when they're coming, because they're so insightful. I mean, it's just ridiculously insightful, and yeah, I'm lucky to have John around.
Aw, thanks. And I'm lucky to have you around too.
Thomas, we're happy you're here too. We're glad you're joining this experience.
Yeah, it's you guys have been inspirational. Right up until I asked how you do this part, and you guys just shrugged.
Because we're making it up as we go along. It's like, I don't know. We don't until it hurts us, and then we do it.
It really seems like everyone's making this up as they go along.
How many zeros are you going to put after that each month? Okay, we'll find a way to make it work. Don't worry about the documentation.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, the application will work.
Well, what's fun is I don't know if John wanted to talk about this, but our new client is a lawyer, and so like having our contracts reviewed by a lawyer, he pretty much just responded laughing at us like,
I know he wants to talk about this because he put it into the Trello board for the first time in like a year.
What's that?
The funny thing. This topic. So the funny thing is, we've known this guy for years. He was a member of SDPHP. We did our first hackathon. He purchased the shirts for the hackathon.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, when Eric and I wanted to create this business, he sat down with us and talked to us and said, "Oh, by the way, I have a law firm, and I'll put you on retainer for $5,000 a month." And we're like, we don't make any money. We're not paying $5,000 a month. No. In the meantime, he's off. He's got a San Diego branch, I think of North California, New York, and Texas branch now. So he lives in Texas. So he's grown tremendously. Now he has this application he wants, and he's like, and he's a coder, so he knows what he's doing. He's got a prototype of what he wants now. Reaches out to us, and we start going back and forth about it. And then he's like, all right, I'll sign a contract. And I send it over to him, and he's like, dude, this is just so bad.
You really need to pay me $5,000 a month just so we can clean up this contract.
Yeah, it sounds like he's just drumming up business for himself.
It's working. Don't take a contract you found online and try and make it work.
What is the issue?
It's just not written. It wasn't written by a lawyer that has our best interest at heart. It's a basic agreement that says, hey, we're going to develop this for you. You're going to own all the rights to it, but you're going to pay us every month. And if you don't pay us, then you're not going to get the code. I mean, it's not well written. It's not good legalese. It's really more of an agreement. It's like a handshake agreement that here's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's not good.
I don't think it would hold up in court, but luckily we haven't gone to court, so no big issue.
Oh man,
I tell you, man, it's terrifying.
I'm glad I don't do that.
It's definitely more stressful than I thought it would be. It's like you talk to other people in the industry, and you know, there's always this. Oh yeah, you're going to get sued. Yeah, at some point somebody's going to sue you. It's like I don't want that to happen. No,
it's been threatened. It's been threatened on us a couple of times.
It has. I do believe that was one of those times where I said, "Bring it." And I was like, "No, don't bring it. We're fine. We'll figure this out. Hold on."
It's like, Eric, stop talking. How do we settle this before it gets to that point?
Oh man, I don't know why we choose to talk about this stuff on the podcast, but man, I feel like somebody at some point is going to exploit it. I tell you.
I figure if they were gonna, they'd do it by now.
Well, and it helps not to have a lot of money.
Yeah,
and to have an LLC where it protects an LLC that helps protect most of it.
Yeah. It's like I just bringing this up because we've gone down this path. Did you guys see the tweet from Taylor today? I guess some company in Sweden has threatened to sue him if he doesn't change the name of Airlock, which I assume
really?
I assume they have a copyright on something called Airlock, and yeah, so he was taking name suggestions, and you could tell it's the stress is getting to him a little bit because he's kind of put the kibosh on all the people asking, hey, just fight it, man, fight it. You can fight this. You got money. You know, he kind of did a generic reply of, hey, stop asking me to fight it because I'm not going to fight it. And, you know, he wasn't very...
It's just not worth it sometimes.
Well, yeah, and I mean, unless you're really in love with the name, it's not worth it at all.
And that's the thing. It's the name of a open source project. It's like, you know, does that even fall under this issue? But even if it does, yeah, to your point, it's like, yeah, you're not going to fight this. He's not making money off of it. He's not, you know, there's no reason for him to fight this. So, but it was funny. You know, everybody's trying to figure out who it is that made the thread, and somebody had replied to Taylor, and you know, his reply was, oh, did they threaten you, or was it somebody smarter than you who came up with a product better? You know, he made some snarky remark, and Taylor's reply to
me?
Taylor's reply to him was, "Go away."
Yep, this sounds like me. That was me.
Yeah, Taylor tweeted, people telling me to fight it. Do you want me to keep writing open source code to make your life better or be entangled in pointless legal battles? Use your heads.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm with him on that. It's like, yeah,
I don't know. I kind of want him to be in pointless legal battles.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine, it made Wire. I mean, he got written up in Wire magazine. I used the word friend very loosely. I met him a couple times. I actually worked with his mom. But he ran a bunch of servers. He ran actually one of the most popular bulletin boards on the internet at the time. And I guess his servers got raided or something, or somehow officials got onto his servers, and a copy of Meet the Fockers was on one of his servers. So he got
Nice.
hit with this huge copyright infringement suit, and at the time he was very well off and decided to fight it. And they're like, are you kidding? You're gonna fight this? You don't want to fight it. You just give us our $5,000 and move on. Otherwise, we're gonna sue you for a couple million. He's like, no, sue me for a couple million because I'm not paying you. Because his defense was, people could upload to the server. It wasn't just his files on the server, so he has no idea where this copy of this movie came from. And like I said, it became this big story. And he was here in San Diego, and the Wired magazine ended up doing a whole profile on him and his battles with copyright infringement. And it was cool at the time, but my God, he spent a lot of money fighting that. And I think at the end of the day, they came to some sort of settlement. It was like one of those, hey, we're not going to say what the settlement is, but we're settling out of court. And I don't know.
You're talking about low tax?
No, what? Low tax?
Yeah.
No, not low tax. But I'm sure you'd be able to figure out who it is, Thomas.
Probably.
I'm trying to remember the name of this bulletin board. I mean, if you were a sysops person, you were on this board. Like, everybody was on this board. Digital Point. I think it was called Digital Point. Let me see if that was it. Digital Point. It was something like that. It was something Digital Point. Yeah, Digital Point. This was it. This was his bulletin board. I don't think he owns it anymore. I think he sold it. But yeah, this was his bulletin board, and I'm not hiding his name. I'm not going to get. I only know his real name. I don't remember if he had a handle or not, and I'm not just going to give out his name. If I come across the Wired magazine article, I'll put it in the show notes. I just don't want to say what this person's name is because I know he had, beyond this, he has some legal issues, and I've actually reached out to him and asked him to speak at SDPHP because he's just a wickedly smart person, and it's crazy his thought process. But yeah, he's had some struggles. I mean, beyond the copyright infringement stuff, he had some legal troubles with. We can talk about off air. I'm not going to talk about those on air because I don't know all the details and I don't want to screw it up. But well, Thomas, you would love it.
We have a lot of GitHub stuff too today.
Oh yeah, we do.
The GitHub Android and iOS app. The what was the newest? The GitHub CLI stuff is all out there.
NPM.
Well, go back to what about the iPhone, iOS, Android app?
Yeah, there's now an official GitHub iOS and Android app that lets you manage your GitHub account and all of the repos and stuff from your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's necessary because it has a website, but
Well, the website is terrible. Have you tried doing anything on that?
On the phone?
No.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Oh, well, there you go.
I don't think you can assign, you can't change the assignee of PRs is one thing. There's things I've tried to log in to do, and it's just like, sure, I can look at a PR real quick, but I can't do anything with it.
Well, okay, there you go.
So, all right, well, thanks. I'll go check that out.
What is the NPM GitHub thing?
They bought NPM.
Yeah, GitHub now owns NPM,
which means Microsoft owns NPM.
Which means Microsoft owns NPM. You're correct. Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely correct. Well, you know what else is weird? In again, cross promotion. It got brought up today. That's one of the reasons why we brought up PHP Ugly. We were talking about enterprise on the PHP podcast today. But it was brought up today about how technically PHP is no longer enterprise qualified, right? I mean, there's no longer
What's that?
a company behind PHP who owns PHP, who supports PHP, who does training for PHP, who does certifications for PHP. That's no longer Zen. I I tell you, I would not be completely surprised to see Microsoft step in that role, but I don't think Microsoft wants to be in that role. I think that's one of the reasons why they have it.
Isn't that what Perforce does?
I don't know. Is it?
Didn't they acquire that? I think they acquired that because I still get phone calls about Zen Server.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, they're still trying to get me to purchase and use Zen Server.
Interesting. All right. I see. I don't get anything anymore on the topic at all. So I used to from Zen. I used to get tons of things, and I still get mailings from Zen, but not. Maybe I just maybe they're getting filtered out or something.
Yeah, I think that's why Perforce is at the PHP conferences. They're still doing something like that. I don't know how it compares to what Zend used to be.
Mm.
Well, it's kind of in PHP Storm's hands now too, because they employ what's his name?
I don't think they employ. I think they help. They contribute.
Yeah, that's just for testing, right? That's just the PHP unit test.
Their grievance.
Yeah.
I think there's a few people like that they're contributing and helping.
Popov. Nikita Popov.
Huh? Yeah, I don't know that they employ. I think they.
Yeah, he's a software developer at JetBrains.
Oh, really? Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, still to your point, like, it doesn't have that what we used to call enterprise backing behind it of someone you can point the finger at and blame. But I mean, any software that says use it at your own risk is going to have that same not enterprise issue.
But again, that was the role of, and John might be right, but that used to be the role of Zen. Zen was the enterprise implementation of PHP.
Right.
And Zen was specifically the reason why I was able to get PHP in the enterprise I was working in at the time. Because at the time, I mean, it's like every other open source project I was bringing up, would just immediately get shut down with, just a pretty much a rubber stamp of no. And then PHP, I was able to get in there because of Zen, and brought Zen in, and Zen did their pitch, and they talked about all the backings and enterprise sort of level of support and stuff that they had. So I'm just curious. I mean, like, is this still a problem, or does this new company have some sort of leverage where they come into these enterprise solutions and say, okay, listen, PHP is still a good solution here.
Well, it's moving fast. I mean, 8.0 is still getting stuff added to it, but they're picking their release manager now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
speaking of moving quickly,
we should.
I was asked.
Wrap this up. What?
I got one more thing.
All right.
Because we haven't taken enough cheap shots at Laravel.
We don't take cheap shots at Laravel. They cost us a lot in Twitter followers and reputation. Jesus.
I was asked to update our PHP version to 7. Or our Laravel version to 7. And
from
my boss, I was
from 6 or 5?
From 6.
Okay.
Not a difficult upgrade, really simple actually. Yep. But when I pulled up the changelog, I found that it was released on the 3rd, updated again on the 3rd, updated on the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 10th, the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, and then the 17th.
It's an open source
And
project, man.
that is too many updates in 2 weeks for me to spend the time doing the upgrade.
Yeah, but I mean, think about how big Laravel is. It's like there's no way their testing suite is verbose enough to be testing for all the scenarios that are out there right now. And I'm sure that, I'm sure they do what they can do before a release, but once that release hits the wild, they're probably getting just inundated with, Laravel's to the point now where it's mission critical, right? This is no longer a hobbyist open source project. This is mission critical code here. And you do a new release, I'm sure he's just getting inundated with companies, wanting small fixes. Hey, this is broken, fix this, fix this, fix that. So that doesn't really surprise me.
But every day, almost every day for 2 weeks is pretty heavy. But
there's like 3 guys in the Laravel company, 3 or 4 guys, 3 or 4 people officially working for Laravel. What are you expecting?
So what I would expect normally would be, here is our patch cycle, which is on Fridays the patch goes out, and everyone can review it over the weekend, whatever. And then if there's more issues, you add it to the patch list, and the next patch goes out next Friday. There was only one really critical bug here, and that was on the 14th. Or no, I'm sorry, that was on the 17th. It was a fix to an XSS vulnerability. And I can understand if there's a vulnerability, push that out immediately. It gets its own release. That's important, and get it done. But small behavior tweaks every single day, including adding functionality, adding features in half of these patches, it's like, slow it down. Slow it down to once a week.
PHP does it once a month for their minor or bug releases.
Right. And I understand Laravel moves fast, big release and everything, but there is not a need, unless it's a security issue, to push out a change every day. Push it back once a week, merge it all together, and give people a preview so that they can verify the changes. It works in their system. Don't do it every day.
Okay. I'm willing to yield to you. Yeah, having a patch release cycle is reasonable, especially again now that you're more mission critical. Some of these companies, and the word enterprise has been brought up a couple times already in the show. When you get to enterprise level, you start dealing with release management groups, right? You can't just do deployments anymore. It's like you have to go through change management groups. I'm sorry, not release management, change management groups. And every upgrade to a core component like Laravel would have to go through a change management board. So, yeah, I think you have a point. I think having a more established release cycle, except for, like you said, bugs, 0-day exploits sort of things. It's a reasonable request, I guess. I would be curious why he doesn't do that.
I still think he's winging it. I think when people come with valid criticisms and say hey, we love what you do, but this is kind of the wrong way to do it, he gets insulted and mad.
Yeah, I don't think he's... Well, perhaps. Okay, perhaps he is winging... I don't think he's winging it. What you said there may be correct. He may have a little bit of an ego with it. I think that it's at a stage for him, we're talking specifically here about Taylor, that this is his life, right? Laravel is his life. It's the only thing he's focused on professionally right now. Assuming, you're assuming. I don't know. I don't sit down and have dinner with the guy as much as I used to, because of you jerks. But
It's just me, really.
it's his life. So I'm sure in his mind, the sooner the better. I have a fix. Let me get it out there. I have this. Let me get it out there.
Sure, but it's our lives too.
That's the point, right? It's like,
and I can't upgrade to 7.01 and have the next day have 7.20 come out.
Right. No, it would be good to sit down to him and sit down with him and say, hey, consider this. Consider patch, scheduled releases. And
we know now that you're the people person here.
No, see, that's our problem. Our people person doesn't like Taylor, and that's John. He was our.
I like Taylor. I like Taylor.
Throw him right under the bus.
I talked to him at World.
You did,
the guy.
He is. Oh, I don't
That's
think I
better
shared
than
it
I
with
did,
you.
because I locked up and stared at him like a deer in the headlights.
That was weird. Did I tell you about that, John? He was like.
Yeah.
That was so funny to me. I'm like, what's wrong with you, Thomas? That was just.
Meanwhile, I bump into the guy and I talk to him. I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm the one that caused all this issue. I'm sorry. And then we do an interview with him, and he walked away from me.
For me, it was like meeting Lex Luthor, where you're like, of course he doesn't know who I am, but I know who he is, and I just want to leave the room.
That is such a terrible way of putting it, Thomas. Come on.
It's probably the worst way I could put it. Yeah.
You don't view him as Lex Luthor. Come on. You stop it. I told John, I don't think I shared with you, though, hopefully we're still doing tech. I feel like I have to keep preferencing that now, but he's actually keynoting at tech in Nashville.
Really?
Yep. It was a surprise to me. I popped on the website. I'm like, why is Taylor on? I actually thought I had gone to Laracon for a
That's
second.
why they released the coronavirus. Is they heard that, and then they're like, okay, we gotta get this out in the wild now.
This is why the Laravel people in the Laravel ecosystem don't like us. Right there. Those comments right there.
Come on. Everyone knows I'm joking. Chill.
Well, I'm glad I could spiral this episode once again out of control.
We need to come up with a good Lex Luthor title for this episode. But,
who's Lex Luthor?
I think I need to pull the ripcord on this one before we get out of hand any further, and I don't get assaulted when I go to Laracon this year and people try to throw me in a tank with a shark or something.
After the shake, tell me who that is.
Where are we? 183? Episode 183 is in the can. I'm Eric.
I'm John.
Please.
I'm Tom.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
Boy, glad I can clean that up in post. All right. So for people who are hanging out after the live stream, this all gets cut out. I'm sharing in Slack that individual I was talking about.
Stop your local recordings.
Oh, good call. I always forget to do that. Stopping local. Stopping Zencaster.
My Yeti seemed to have cut out a couple of times on that.
It did sound like you were cutting out there for a little bit. I know. Oscar mentioned that.
Well, 2 different times, all of a sudden, I had Discord open and it said that my audio device changed, and it seems like it was just like real brief, like cut out and then cut back on. I don't know what that was about.
You guys need to get like Shure mics and real DACs for your stuff.
No,
Yeah.
I gotta find out where I don't know if my mic plugs in through my monitor, and my monitor cut out for a second. I'll look at that later.
You really
I'm definitely
do need better hardware.
Thinking too. Well, I always thought Yeti was good, but I guess Yetis aren't. Everybody's saying the USB mics aren't as good as everybody thinks they are. So I don't know. I'm tired of sinking money into this little hobby, but I might do it one more time.
No, you're not. Sinking money into cool toys is like your favorite thing.
So, anyways, that article actually talks exactly what I was talking about. How he was getting sued by Universal Pictures for having a copy of Meet the Fockers on one of his servers. Yeah, they said
That's just an early summary.
Yeah, this was early. This was very early in that case, and yeah, so yeah. All right, I'm in the stream because I want to talk about this guy some because I think you'd appreciate it, Thomas. Everybody on the stream, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks to our
Patreons
who we need
to do on the show.
On the show next time. Catch you guys next week. Bye.